And hello everyone, and a warm welcome on board here at Canal Tours for tour of Copenhagen's inner harbour, so well as its canals. First and foremost, I would like to request your full attention please, as your safety on board is our highest priority, and it's therefore important you pay very close attention to these instructions. We're going to go under a lot of low bridges on the tour, so please remain seated. That goes for adults and children alike. No touching the bridges, no arms outside the boat, no smoking. Beneath your seats you have life jackets. Allerførst vil jeg gerne bede om jeres fulde opmærksomhed. Det er sikkerhed ombord af vores højeste prioritet. Det er derfor vigtigt, at man lytter rigtig godt efter til disse instrukser på starten af turen. Vi skal under en del lave broer, så bliver venligt siddende. Det gælder både børn og voksne. Man må ikke røre ved bordene, man må ikke havne ud på båden, man må ikke ryge. Under jeres steder har I redningsveste. Now then, the tour is available in two languages, in English as you've noticed, and in Danish. I'm gonna offer it in Danish now. Til danskere, Vales&Tales ombord tilbyder jeg to slags ture. En tur på engelsk med ekstra detaljer, og en tur på dansk, hvis det er det man lyst. Har man lyst til turen på dansk, så er det en hånd i vejret nu. Jeg ser ingen hænder. Hvis der hænder, så skal de vinke. Vi tager turen på engelsk. I siger til, hvis I bestemmer, I will be carrying on all in English then. Woo! Today is sailing together with Captain Ole up here in the front. Captain Ole, ladies and gentlemen. What a specimen. You're sailing with me. My name is Patrick, and I'll be your guide for the next hour. Now then, the first sight on the tour is this bridge coming up here, the lowest, would you believe it? So please remain seated, one and all, and mind your heads. Once again, that is the lowest bridge on the tour. Thank you. We are currently sailing out of the Copenhagen Canal, which was dug out 350 years ago in order to establish a link between the ocean and the King's New Square, which we just left behind. Back then it was more of a murky sailors' area, teeming to the very brim with sailors, alcohol and ladies of the night. But it's changed a lot throughout the years, become a very popular spot here in Copenhagen where we see a lot of activity, especially throughout the summer. Folks from all over the world visiting, so well as Danes, to enjoy a walk alongside the sunny side of Nyhavn here on our left-hand side, catching all the rays of the sun even here in the late hours of the day, the coziest part of the canal, as opposed to the other side, which isn't. Slowly leave the canal behind here. If you cast your eyes here to your left hand side, you're going to notice we have this large black building. This is the Royal Danish Playhouse, which opened in 2008 with the famous words, "To be or not to be," because of course it opened with Shakespeare's Hamlet. The reason why it opened with Hamlet, well, that's because Hamlet takes place in a Danish castle known as Copenhagen. You can visit that a little bit further north in the city of Elsinore if you want to immerse yourself in a bit of Shakespeare. The building was designed by Lumgaard and Tranberg, a Danish architect, who gave it a clever cooling system using its position here at the harbour. Whenever the building becomes too warm, they pump in cool seawater through the building in order to cool it back down. Over on our right-hand side here, you'll see we have an ongoing construction project here in the Paper Island to be finished in 2025. An array of new beautiful apartments and condos, so well as a new indoor swimming facility, which is what we have been put together in the metal framework there on our right-hand side. They're going to have water slides sliding you all the way out into the harbour itself, so you can kind of pick your poison when you go inside, whether you want fresh water or salt water. As for the condos are all finished and have been sold at soaring prices between 5 to 80 million Danish crowns. Put quite simply, I will never live there. You'll also notice, of course, a little bit further ahead of us here on our right-hand side, we have this large building with an even larger roof. This is the Opera House dating back to 2005, a gift from the Mouse Company. The building is divided into 14 stories, 5 of them beneath the water surface, and it was designed as a well-crafted love letter to the musical arts. And you can see that even here from the outside. Just now we're slowly coming up on the outer shell of the main auditorium, which is clad in maple wood. Very same wood used for string instruments, layered like strings across an instrument as well. If you look beyond the window panes here, you'll notice the red walls. The walls of the main auditorium itself, which is shaped on the inside as a heart, to truly drive home that beating passion for music. There's also the outer wall of the building, by far my favorite part of it. It seems a little unassuming at a glance, but it hides a secret. You see, each of those bricks produce musical notes when you knock on them. So with your very bare hands, you can play music on the side of the opera house. It was designed by Henning Larsen, a Danish architect who loves it. You smack his buildings, and yes, I've been up there myself, had a go at it. It's actually true. It does play music.
Smack.
You'll also notice here on our right hand side, well beyond the cranes we have in the distance, this large industrial building with a mighty chimney. This is Copenhagen is one of the most modern incinerators in the world today. Here they burn through 500,000 tons of waste throughout a year. That is so much waste, we need to import waste from other countries just to meet the sheer potential of the building. And if there's any skiing enthusiasts among you, and find yourself saddened by the lack of mountains in Flatland, well, look no further. For this impressive 985 meters, it is the tallest mountain in Copenhagen, and it features its very own ski slope on top. That's right, you can go skiing down that incinerator all year round if you so please. You can even rent a pair of ski out there if you forgot your own at home. They even installed a climbing wall into the other side of the building, the tallest climbing wall in the entirety of Europe. It truly is the closest you get to a mountain in Copenhagen. Here on our right hand side as well, we have this long grey war vessel with F352 written on the side of it. This is a frigate known as Pillar's Cup, and it was deployed during the Cold War, and it is incredibly famous. Not for the deployment, but rather for an accident that happened in 1982. The accident happened during a routine exercise when one of the men on board turned a faulty key. Off went a missile straight into a summer vacation spot. 134 summer houses were hit in the explosion, a total disaster. Thankfully, nobody was present or hurt in the explosion. It was only structural damage, but a bit of a disaster nonetheless. It ended up earning the official title in newspapers all throughout Denmark, the Whoopsie missile. Vessels open as a museum throughout the summer if you want to learn more. Of course, we also get a bit of a guest here in our harbour. Not a sight we get on every tour. This beautiful white ship with golden filigree alongside the side, Danish flag waving at bow and stern. This is the Royal Yacht of Denmark, the oldest royal yacht in the world, dating back to 1932. As you can see, we have some folks on board right now patrolling the deck, working with some ropes. As far as I'm concerned, it's impossible to get them to wave at you, but you're welcome to try. Dutifully focused on everything else but us. You'll also notice directly ahead of the boat here we have this green patch of grass, cannons lined up, old buildings in the back. This is Battery 6s dating back to 1746. And the area is known because one cannon goes off twice a day. Once at sunrise and once at sunset. We hear a cannon shot from the battery, signaling to the ships out here in the harbour that it's time to either hoist or flag. However, here on the northern side of the globe, sunrise throughout the summer. That's 4 o'clock in the morning. And the royal family on the other side of the harbour, they didn't quite fancy waking up to cannon shots 4 o'clock in the morning all summer long. So it was declared and decreed that here in Denmark the sun rises at 8 o'clock sharp. And not a minute before. That's when the cannon goes.
What's that?
That's not it. We have something that's not part of the tour. Don't look. That's a shout out to one of my colleagues on board who taught me that joke. But you will notice, of course, we have a row of containers. These have been fashioned into student homes to better facilitate the travel to Copenhagen, to become a student in one of the universities or a pupil in one of the schools. By proximity, one of the most recent additions to the Vales Island, this large industrial area here on our right-hand side. Used to be the largest workplace in Denmark, but today it's instead home to a variety of happenings throughout the year. Festivals, art exhibitions, parties of all sorts of kinds, and an absolutely fantastic street food market known as Copenhagen Street Food. Definitely worth a visit. I've been there many times myself. It is warmly recommended. The people behind the stalls are masters of the craft and passionate as well. If you're looking for an international treat, head on out there to Copenhagen Street Food. And if you're just looking for a fun activity, we also have one of those here on our right hand side. You see we have the crane with black and white metal bars stretching towards the sky. That is the bungee jumping crane here in Copenhagen, in case anyone's feeling particularly brave. You can jump up with two lines. One stops you just shy of the water, and with the other line you get a little dip into the water as part of the jump, if you dare. Now, when they initially opened the bungee jumping crane, they opened it with a bit of a commercial stunt. They said you can jump for free if you jump entirely naked. Turned out to be very popular. A lot of folks showed up and dropped their clothes, and when they started seeing naked people, not every day, but every hour, can you believe it, they regretted the offer. These days, if you want to jump out naked, I'm afraid you have to pay for it. And here in just a moment we're going to be arriving at what many consider to be the main attraction on the tour, the largest, smallest attraction on offer here in Copenhagen, the most photographed woman in the entirety of Denmark. She starred in a Disney film. You probably know who it is. She's coming up here on our right hand side mere seconds from now. Fighting a little bit with the sun here. Managed to get a couple of glimpses. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to, here on your right hand side, the very Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid, she's been sat here on the rock since 1913 and was originally a gift from the Carlsberg breweries. Specifically, it was a brewer, Carl Jacobsen, who fell in love with the character after seeing her in a ballet performance based on the popular narrative from Hans Christian Andersen. Since then, he decided to have her immortalized in statue form, put here on her rock where she has been almost ever since. Indeed, the Little Mermaid, she's a very accessible figure, which you've no doubt noticed. Available for visits all throughout the day, all throughout the night. And as you might imagine, this level of accessibility, it does allow for a fair share of vandalism. Fortunately, the Little Mermaid has suffered throughout her life. She has lost her head twice, almost thrice, had an arm cut off once, been bombarded in paint on numerous occasions, and throughout the entirety of COVID, why, she had a mask on every day. It's not easy being a little bit. Here on our right hand side we have a seaplane with red white detailing alongside the whole one of two seaplanes that you see at this spot in Copenhagen, flying between Copenhagen and Aarhus, a northern city in Denmark. It takes 45 minutes to cross half the country in one of these. You can also book them for sightseeing trips out over Copenhagen, total of 30-minute trip, 10-minute takeoff, 10 minutes in the sky, 10 minutes of landing for a total of 30 minutes in a seaplane, if you're not afraid of heights. Once more, of course, as an additional reminder, the Royal Yacht here on our left-hand side, for those of you who want a second go at it from this side. inside in just a moment. We're going to see two small pavilions, each with a golden ornament on top. These are the royal pavilions of Copenhagen. This is where you'll find the royal family whenever they're about to board the royal yacht. The one with the crown on top, that's where the royal family gets to wait. The one they gracefully mounted a golden onion on, that's where the guests get to stay. Whether the pavilions were gifts from Norway, so to any Norwegians on board, thank you. Of course, you'll also notice here on our right-hand side we have this large white building with blue windows. These are the Maersk headquarters. Maersk is one of the largest container shipping lines in the entire world, sailing out to 123 different countries. And the building itself is meant to resemble their craft. Do you see it? Oh yes. Yes. Containers stacked one upon another in rows upon rows. My, how imaginative. And we got the blue logo coming up here, the Maersk logo. That is a Maersk blue, as a matter of fact. They actually own that particular shade of blue for commercial use worldwide. Now, as you can tell, they do have quite the construction project going on here. Put up the white tents encased in steel beams and everything. They're working on a new headquarters in there. And they put up the tents to keep the construction workers nice and dry in all kinds of weather. Very considerate. Of course, they also put up the tents so they can eventually drop the cloth for the grand reveal of the new headquarters some years from now. And we're all waiting with bated breath to see whether we get another stack of containers. Here in just a moment, slowly emerging here on our right hand side, you have this long stretch of the garden. This is the Amalie Garden, the foreground to what may very well be the most jaw-dropping backdrop we're going to experience on the tour. That being Amalienborg Palace in its entirety. We're going to be able to look directly into the palace yard in just a little moment. Amalienborg Palace, it dates back to 1749 and was originally built for a handful of noble families. However, due to a fire in 1794, the old royal castle, known as Christiansborg Castle, burned to the ground. So the royal family had to move. They moved out here, where they remain, making this the Royal Palace of Denmark. At the very least, the silhouette of it. As we slowly skirt along the waves here, if you squint your eyes as hard as you can and look in the center of the palace yard, here in just a moment you'll be able to see an equestrian statue stood at the center. He's coming up, I promise. Alright, there he is. An equestrian statue stood in the center. That statue is King Frederick V, the king who was behind the palace, as well as the marble church in the far back. And the marble church was a grand undertaking, mainly in that it cost a bit too much money. So for 145 years it stood there unfinished, a bit of an eyesore really, until they finally scraped together the means necessary to crown it with the largest church dome in the entirety of Scandinavia, and it is absolutely marvelous. On the inside, the outside, well worth a visit if you haven't been. No doubt some of you noticed we have the flags up at Amalienborg Palace today as well. It's a little bit hard to see from this angle, but the royal crown is actually at the center, indicating that members of the royal family are currently home. Every day at 12 o'clock noon, the change of the royal guard takes place, and when royalty is present, music is involved in the shape of a marching orchestra. If you want to experience that, be here at 12 o'clock noon tomorrow. Keep an eye out for the flags. The ship we're leaving behind here on our right-hand side, named Atlantis, was actually once a lighthouse ship used in an area where it was impossible to construct a lighthouse, and has since been fashioned into a sailing ship, just booked for trips out throughout Europe. Of course, a Dutch ship, as you can see there from the flag waving at the rear. Now we are currently sailing through one of the cleanest harbours in Europe today due to a lot of work between WWF, Stroma and other authorities out here in our harbour. And one of the most recent things that we've done here in the waters is that we've been putting bio-huts into the ocean. So, to the uninitiated, a bio-hut is a large steel cage with oyster shells and mussels inside. They hang them alongside the docks down into the waters, where they then provide safe areas for the endangered fish species here in our harbour. Here the fish can swim on into the cages and hide from larger predators and enjoy a little meal in the meantime. So we are going to be sailing alongside hundreds of small fish hotels for the rest of the tour. And now here in just a moment, Captain Ole is going to turn to the left and take us into the Christianshavn Canal. Christianshavn was built by Christian IV, the very notorious king here in Denmark, for a variety of different achievements. For instance, he had 23 children. Yeah, you can imagine how much fun that was for everyone involved. He also started a lot of wars, of which we didn't win as a single one. Not the most beloved of kings. But I'll tell you what, he had an eye for architecture. We're going to see elements of that as we make our way into the Christianshavn Canal in just a moment. As a matter of fact, once we get in there, you might notice a certain likeness between Christianshavn and Amsterdam. Not accidental. The king was hoping that he could lure some rich Dutch salesmen to this part of our harbour to pay the Danish tax. Unfortunately though, the Dutch were not very interested in mini Amsterdam. They had the bigger model back home. And the Danes didn't want to move in either. So 400 years ago, when Christianshavn was finished and ready to go, it was given away for free. In fact, you could move in back then and you wouldn't have to pay taxes for 12 years just for moving in. It was so unpopular the king would literally pay you just to live here. And the reason why it was so unpopular is because of islets like this one here on our right. Back then, the foundation was so muddy, most of the original buildings crashed into the ocean. But it was tax-free, so not too bad. Now in just a moment, we're finally in the canal. I've told you so much about. The reason why I told you about it ahead of time, that's because it's a quiet zone. So for the next little while, I'm gonna disappear. All I can mention are the bridges, as well as one church. Otherwise, the quiet zone's gonna start right after this bridge. Mind your heads, everyone. Thank you. I'll take a little trip through the boat, take any questions if you have them. Otherwise, this is going to mark the start of the quiet zone.
Jeg tror nogle af ordene er svære for folk, hvis de bor i engelsk og engelsk militær i først. Jeg tror, han tager. Det er svært engelsk. Men teknikken er fucking... Altså, der er ikke et ord, der lander på et forkert tidspunkt. Der er ikke...
Hvad til, vi står med roser her?
Ja,
jeg glæder mig over, hvor var det henne? Det var ved Operahuset, jeg var sådan, skal du ikke lide? Oh, that's so dirty. Smack that. Smack that. Fed det ikke? Det var sådan, hold nu op, Patrick. Du starter tiden med det dirtiness allerede, hva'?
Virkelig, fordi timing er jo bare perfekt, mand. Du har den der, du går op og ned, og dit og dat, og det er virkelig flot, Patrick, mand.
Får du også noget af det?
Jo, det gør jeg. Det er virkelig fedt at se nogen, der rent faktisk
Find ud af det.
Hvor du får det der smæk mig i billedet? Ja, jeg slået på det, ikke smækket.
Laver musik.
I 1600-tallet her var der kun plads, ikke? Før man byggede plads til sammen.
Det er sådan, som jeg husker det.
Der var ikke noget. Og det er ikke bygget, er det kun bygget med skrald og
styre, og så blev samlet på alle mulige lort.
altså man affalder i starten.
Ja. Ja, det var ikke så pænt derovre.
Så er det galt. Det er også godt.
Jeg får helt for lidt.
Her kommer jeg. Jeg vil gerne prøve at lave en tur, hvor jeg ikke nævner noget, som jeg forstår.
Og snakke på vandet.
Ja, bare snakke på vandet og julet. The reason why we were late, this chick was banging. Oh my god.
So there was a guy called Christian before. I don't know, my friend Christian the other day.
Det var godt med sidste tur,
Ja. Bare ødelægge det på noget, så mennesker var betalt.
Det sjove er, det er, hvad skal man kolde? Hvad kolder 140 mennesker, så super til stemmen, ikke? Som Hvad dækker du nærmest?
Jeg tror, du kommer på, hvis du er ikke til en sømand, eller en sømand, der vil til det går.
Jeg har sikkert mistet et par stykker.
Ja.
Under noget kvæltest, ikke? Nu skulle I sex.
Ja, for det er
Snart du ikke?
So, here in just a moment, we're going to have another bridge. And then right after the bridge, we're going to have a small moment, a tiny opportunity to get a picture of Our Saviour's Church. It's going to be in here on our left-hand side. No doubt some of you have noticed the beautiful church tower with the spiraling staircase and the outside of the spire. We're going to see that church in its entirety for all of 1 whopping second. So, if you want a picture, device is ready and pointed in that direction. If you want to see the church, I suggest not blinking. It's coming up after the bridge. After the bridge. On our left-hand side, Our Saviour's Church. Prepare you just a little ahead of time. Once again, that is after the bridge.
Yes, man.
Little extra piece of advice is you want to kind of aim your phone a little backwards to the left. That's the perfect angle.
Det er bollerne.
That's great.
Han fortalte, hvad han er.
Oh, ja!
Efterbro.
Efterbro.